Have you ever noticed how often you wake up around 3 a.m., staring at the ceiling in the quiet darkness, wondering why sleep has left you? You might shift in bed, listen to the hum of the night, and ask yourself, what's wrong with me? Is it my age? My health? My mind? The truth is, you're not alone. This is far more common than most people realize, especially for those of us over 50. And it's not just a random habit or an unavoidable part of getting older. There are real, understandable reasons behind it, and once you know them, you can begin to take back control of your nights. Let's walk through 5 powerful reasons why you might be waking up at this same hour, and more importantly, what you can do to change it. 1. Your sleep cycles naturally change with age. As we get older, our bodies shift how they move through the different stages of sleep. Deep sleep becomes shorter, and lighter stages take up more time. This means you're more likely to wake up in the middle of the night, especially if something disturbs you, like noise, a temperature change, or even just the urge to use the bathroom. Understanding this natural shift is the first step toward making adjustments that help you stay asleep longer. 2. Stress and worry are louder at night. The quiet of 3 a.m. has a way of amplifying the thoughts we try to push aside during the day. Maybe you're worried about your health, your family, your finances, or simply the passage of time. In the stillness, these thoughts can feel heavier, pulling you fully awake. Recognizing that nighttime anxiety is a common experience and learning ways to calm the mind before bed can make a huge difference. 3. Hormonal shifts play a role. For women, menopause often brings changes in estrogen and progesterone levels, which can directly disrupt sleep. For men, lower testosterone can have a similar effect. Add to that changes in melatonin, the sleep hormone we all rely on, and you've got a perfect recipe for nighttime wakefulness. Supporting your body through nutrition, routine, and sometimes supplements can help balance these shifts. 4. Lifestyle and evening habits matter more than you think. Late-night coffee, that extra glass of wine, or even scrolling on your phone can make your brain more alert right when you need it to wind down. Your body's internal clock, your circadian rhythm can get thrown off by bright light from screens or inconsistent bedtimes. Small changes, like dimming the lights earlier and creating a calming bedtime ritual, can signal your body it's time for rest. 5. Underlying health conditions could be a hidden cause. Sometimes, waking up at 3 a.m. regularly can be a sign of something deeper, like sleep apnea, acid reflux, chronic pain, or even certain heart or lung issues. If your middle-of-the-night wake-ups are frequent and affecting your energy during the day, it's worth talking to your doctor to rule out these possibilities. The good news? You're not powerless. By understanding what's happening in your body and mind, and by making small, thoughtful changes, you can reclaim those precious hours of uninterrupted rest. Imagine lying down at night, closing your eyes, and waking up refreshed. No more staring at the clock in the dark. Your nights can be peaceful again, and it all starts with knowing why you wake and what you can do about it. Wake-ups at 3 a.m. can be frustrating, but here's the real story. If you've ever woken up in the stillness of the night, eyes wide open, mind surprisingly alert, you know just how frustrating it can be. Take Harold, for example. At 72, he's always thought of himself as a solid sleeper, but lately, he finds himself awake at 3:15 a.m., staring at the shadows in his bedroom. He's not worried, not upset, just awake, as if it's already time to start the day. For weeks, Harold wondered what was wrong. Was it stress? Was it his health? Then he learned something that completely changed his perspective. His body's melatonin production had simply shifted with age. That's all. It wasn't a personal failure, and it didn't mean something was broken. It was a natural part of getting older. Armed with that understanding, Harold stopped blaming himself and started making small, practical changes. He began keeping his bedroom darker at night, avoided screens for at least an hour before bed, and took a short evening walk to reinforce his body's natural circadian rhythm. These little habits became gentle signals to his brain. It's still nighttime, stay in rest mode. And while he still occasionally wakes early, he now works with his body instead of fighting it. That shift from frustration to compassion has made all the difference. Awareness really is powerful. When you understand that your sleep changes are rooted in biology, you can stop resenting your body and start supporting it. 2. The shifted sleep cycle, also known as advanced sleep phase. Another big reason older adults tend to wake up around 3 a.m. is something called advanced sleep phase. This is when your body's internal clock, the circadian rhythm, naturally shifts earlier as you age. You start feeling sleepy earlier in the evening and waking up earlier in the morning, whether you want to or not. You might notice yourself dozing off halfway through a late-night movie or waking without an alarm at dawn, even on days you'd prefer to sleep in. This isn't just a matter of habit, it's hardwired into our biology. In our younger years, our internal clock tends to line up with later bedtimes, making it easier to stay up and sleep until the sun is well up. But as the years pass, the sleep window moves forward. You may drift off at 9 p.m. or even earlier without meaning to. By the time 3 a.m. arrives, your body has already completed its natural sleep cycle, even though the world outside is still dark and quiet. Think of it as your body's clock gently ticking ahead over the years, just a few minutes each season, until one day it's set to a whole new schedule. It's not harmful, but it can be frustrating when your lifestyle, family, or social activities don't match this new rhythm. There's also an emotional layer to this change. Many older adults live in quieter homes and have less daily stimulation in the evenings than they did in their younger years. Without the background noise of a busy household or the energy of a demanding job, your brain gets the signal to start winding down earlier. If you're retired or have a more flexible daily routine, you might not have the same time cues like commutes, meetings, or evening events that once kept you on a later schedule. Take Charles, for example. At 68, he's retired and enjoys a peaceful life. He eats dinner around 5:30 p.m., watches a little television, and is in bed by 9 p.m. By 3 a.m., his body is naturally ready to wake up, not because something's wrong, but simply because his internal clock has shifted. At first, Charles worried it was insomnia, but once he learned about advanced sleep phase, he stopped worrying and started experimenting. He began adding small cues to keep himself awake a bit longer, reading a favorite book under warm light, taking a gentle walk after dinner, and sometimes calling his daughter for a quick evening chat. These simple changes nudged his bedtime later, which pushed his natural wake-up time closer to sunrise. And that's the point. Once you know why your sleep is shifting, you can make adjustments instead of just feeling frustrated. You're not broken, you're just operating on a slightly different schedule. And with a little awareness, you can work with it, not against it. Waking up at 3 a.m. doesn't have to be a mystery. Here's what's really going on. If you've ever found yourself wide awake in the middle of the night, eyes open, room still, the rest of the world fast asleep, you know how frustrating it can feel. The clock reads 3:15 a.m., and you're not tossing or turning with worry. You're just awake. That's exactly what happened to Harold. At 72, he'd always thought of himself as a rock-solid sleeper. Sure, he had the occasional restless night, but overall, sleep had never been an issue. Until recently. Now, almost like clockwork, he was waking up before dawn with no drowsiness to pull him back under. It felt strange, even a little unsettling. For a while, Harold wondered if it was stress. Was his mind working overtime? Was something wrong with his health? But then he learned something that completely shifted his perspective. As we get older, our bodies naturally produce less melatonin, the hormone that helps regulate sleep. This wasn't about personal failure or bad habits. It was simply biology. And once Harold understood that, everything changed. Instead of lying there frustrated, he started making gentle, intentional adjustments to work with his body's new rhythm. He kept his bedroom darker at night. He switched off screens at least an hour before bed. He added a short, peaceful evening walk to help reinforce his body's circadian signals. None of these were drastic changes, but together, they sent a quiet message to his brain. It's still nighttime. You can stay in rest mode. And while Harold still occasionally wakes early, the difference is that now he understands what's happening. He stopped blaming himself and started cooperating with his body instead of fighting it. That's the real power of awareness. It turns self-criticism into self-compassion. and frustration into something much more productive. Why 3 ampere? Wake-ups happen more often with age, the shifted sleep cycle. Another common reason older adults find themselves awake at 3 a.m. is something called advanced sleep phase. Simply put, it's a shift in your body's internal clock, your circadian rhythm, that nudges you toward falling asleep earlier in the evening and waking earlier in the morning. You might notice it creeping in when you start dozing off halfway through a movie you used to watch easily until midnight, or when you wake up naturally at dawn without needing an alarm even on days you'd rather sleep in. This isn't about willpower, and it's not just habit, it's a deep, built-in part of how our biology changes with age. In our younger years, the body's natural rhythm tends to align with later nights and mornings that stretch comfortably past sunrise. But as we grow older, that sleep window gradually shifts forward. You might find yourself falling asleep at 9 p.m. or even earlier without planning to. By 3 a.m., your body has already cycled through enough rest that it thinks it's time to wake up, no matter what the clock says. Think of it as a clock that's been slowly ticking ahead, year after year. It's not harmful, but it can be inconvenient if your personal routine, family schedule, or social life doesn't match this earlier rhythm. There's also a lifestyle factor at play. As life becomes quieter, whether through retirement, fewer evening obligations, or simply a calmer home environment, your brain doesn't get as many stay-awake signals late in the day. Without the buzz of daily commutes, after-work dinners, or evening events, your body can start winding down earlier. Take Charles, for example. At 68, he's retired and enjoys a peaceful routine: dinner at 5:30 p.m., a little television afterward, and lights out by 9 p.m. By 3 a.m., he's wide awake not because he's stressed or unhealthy, but because his body's clock has shifted. The lesson? Our bodies crave rhythm, predictable patterns that signal the brain when to rest and when to rise. When those patterns fade or shift, the body's internal clock can lose its bearings, resulting in earlier and more fragmented sleep. But the good news is that with awareness and a few thoughtful changes, it's possible to guide your body back toward a rhythm that feels restorative and better aligned with your lifestyle. At first, Charles thought this meant he had insomnia. But once he learned about advanced sleep phase, he stopped worrying and started experimenting. He added a few simple changes: reading under warm light for a bit longer, taking a gentle walk after dinner, or giving his daughter a quick call before bed. These little cues helped him stay awake later, which in turn pushed his wake-up time closer to sunrise. And that's the key takeaway. When you know why your sleep is shifting, you can make thoughtful adjustments instead of battling your own biology. You're not broken. Your body is simply running on a slightly different timetable now, and with a little awareness, you can work with that timetable instead of against it. I can also make this into an even smoother narrative flow script so it feels like one continuous story rather than two separate sections, if you want it perfectly ready for video delivery. That would make the transitions more seamless and keep viewers hooked from start to finish. Health and deeper rest. Number 4. Lifestyle habits that quietly shift your sleep rhythm. One surprisingly powerful yet often overlooked reason so many older adults find themselves awake at 3 a.m. comes down to something simple: daily habits. Over the years, the little choices we make, day in and day out, start to quietly reshape our internal clock. It often begins without much notice. Dinner moves a little earlier, the evenings become quieter, and physical activity during the day might slow down. Each of these changes may seem small on its own, but over time, they add up, sending subtle signals to the body. That nighttime begins earlier than it used to, and when the night begins earlier, the wake-up time naturally shifts forward too. After retirement, especially, days often become more peaceful and predictable. Without the external cues, we once relied on commutes, errands, meetings, or mentally stimulating tasks, the body's sleep-wake cycle can start to drift. A calm, dimly lit evening with little stimulation tells the brain to begin producing melatonin sooner. Before you even notice, you might be yawning before 9 p.m., settling into bed early, and waking up in the quiet hours before dawn. And there's another piece of the puzzle: the relationship between meal timing and sleep quality. Eating dinner early is generally healthy, but it can sometimes lead to a natural dip in blood sugar later in the night. That drop may not feel like hunger, but it can be enough to nudge your body toward wakefulness. Likewise, even a modest amount of caffeine consumed in the early afternoon can linger far longer in the system as metabolism slows with age, making your sleep lighter and more easily disturbed. Take Walter, for example. At 74, he'd recently retired and slipped into a slower-paced life. Supper at 5 p.m., dozing in his recliner during the evening news, and heading to bed before 9 had become his new normal. He didn't think much of it until he began waking up wide awake at 3 a.m., puzzled by why he was alert before the first birds even began singing. Once he stepped back in L. Number 5. Emotional and psychological restlessness. Not all 3 a.m. wake-ups are caused by physical changes in the body. Sometimes, the culprit is the mind. As we grow older, life tends to quiet down in ways that can feel both peaceful and revealing. In the stillness of the night, when the world is asleep and distractions are few, thoughts we've been carrying for years can suddenly rise to the surface. These moments can stir up emotions we didn't even know were waiting for our attention. Old memories, unresolved regrets, lingering worries, or even a longing for moments that have passed. You might find yourself lying awake, not because of a noise outside or discomfort in your body, but because your mind has slipped into reflection mode. In earlier years, the constant motion of life, raising a family, working full-time, meeting deadlines, managing responsibilities, often kept those deeper feelings in the background. But now, in the quiet early hours, the mind finally has the space to wander. Sometimes it's gentle nostalgia. Other times, it's a subtle unease that makes it hard to drift back to sleep. For many people, understanding this connection between mental restlessness and early waking is freeing. It's not a sign of weakness, and it doesn't mean something is wrong with you. It's simply part of the human experience, especially in later life when we finally have room to process the layers of our own story. Some find relief in gentle nighttime practices, keeping a journal by the bed to jot down thoughts, practicing deep breathing, or listening to soft music that soothes the mind back toward rest. Others embrace the wakefulness as a moment for quiet meditation or gratitude, using it as a peaceful way to start the day when sleep won't return. The key is this: when you understand why you're waking up, you can approach it with patience rather than frustration. And whether the cause is lifestyle shifts, hormonal changes, or the quiet work of the mind, that awareness alone can transform the way you experience those early morning hours. This kind of restlessness is not the same as the intense, overwhelming anxiety you might have felt when you were younger. It's quieter, more reflective. It often shows up like a soft hum in the background, a gentle but persistent feeling that something in your life remains unsettled, even if you can't quite put your finger on what it is. When the mind isn't fully occupied, it tends to wander backward, revisiting old relationships, decisions you once made, losses you've endured, or words you never had the chance to say. And because your body is no longer rushing from one task to another, no deadlines to meet, no endless to-do lists pulling at your attention, there's more space for those thoughts to echo. They seem louder, more present, in the quiet hours of the night. It's also worth noting that loneliness can be a quiet companion in these early hours. As we grow older, our social circles naturally change. Children move to different cities, friends become busy with their own lives, and long-standing routines shift or disappear altogether. The days may still be filled with light, activity, and pleasant conversation, but nighttime brings silence. And in that stillness, you may feel the subtle ache of missing someone to talk to, someone to share that quiet with. Consider Gloria, age 80, who lost her husband several years ago. During the day, she fills her time with gardening, chatting with her grandchildren, and enjoying her favorite television shows. But around 3 a.m., she often wakes. Her mind drifts to memories of her late husband or to small worries she tucks away during daylight hours. At first, she assumed something was wrong with her sleep. But in time, she realized her early wake-ups weren't about sleep at all. They were her heart's way of asking to be heard. To give herself that outlet, Gloria began keeping a small journal on her nightstand. When she wakes in the early hours, She sometimes jots down whatever is on her mind, nothing elaborate, just a few honest thoughts. She also created a gentle evening ritual, listening to soft instrumental music or writing a short note to a friend. These small acts of reflection and connection gave her emotions somewhere to go, easing her mind and allowing her to drift back into sleep more peacefully. The truth is, the human heart doesn't run on a fixed schedule. It remembers what it wants to remember, asks the questions it needs to ask, and often chooses the stillest hours of the night to do so. That's not a flaw, it's a sign of depth. If you find yourself waking up at 3 a.m., with your mind wandering through memories and reflections, it could be a sign that you're carrying wisdom and life experience that's ready to be acknowledged. You've lived through joy, loss, challenges, and victories, and those moments shape not only your memories, but your very sense of who you are. Instead of treating these wake-ups as something broken that needs fixing, try meeting them with curiosity and compassion. Ask yourself, what is my mind trying to tell me? What needs my attention? Which parts of my story need to be spoken or honored, even in the dark? Sometimes, the most restorative kind of rest doesn't come from ignoring these moments. It comes from leaning into them and honoring what they reveal. When you do this, you may discover that your early morning wake-ups are not only less frustrating, but they also bring a deeper understanding of yourself in this chapter of life. Final thoughts. As we close, take a moment to reflect on the ideas we've explored together. Which reasons spoke to you the most? Was it the way your internal clock shifts over time? The gentle changes in health and hormone balance? The subtle effects of your daily routine? Or perhaps something deeper, an emotional rhythm that emerges only when the rest of the world is still? Each of these 5 reasons offers a unique way of understanding your early morning awakenings. None of them means something is wrong with you. In fact, they are signs that your body and mind are still actively adapting, processing, and responding to the life you've lived and the changes you continue to navigate. There's a quiet strength in understanding what your body is trying to tell you in those soft pre-dawn hours. Instead of labeling 3 a.m. wake-ups as a nuisance, you might start to see them as messages, gentle reminders to listen more closely to your needs, your habits, and your heart. You are not alone in this. Many people share this experience, and many have found ways to work with it rather than against it. With understanding comes the power to make small, meaningful changes that can lead to better rest, greater comfort, and a deeper connection to your own rhythms. If you recognize yourself in any of the reasons we've discussed today, know this: you are not simply aging, you are evolving. And with evolution comes an opportunity to rest with greater intention, to care for yourself with more gentleness, and to greet each morning with a little more peace. Thank you for being here with us today. We'd love to hear your thoughts. Share in the comments one insight you're taking away and how you might apply it in your own life. Your stories and reflections inspire not only us, but also others who may be searching for understanding. And if you found this conversation meaningful, please like, subscribe, and share, so we can continue creating content that informs and inspires. We'll see you next time, and until then, may your nights be restful and your mornings full of clarity and calm.